child is a psychic energy that exists in all of us, which represents our original contact with the world. So our original joy, our original pain, our original creativity and curiosity. So if you were born as a human being, you inherently have this energy of the inner child within you. The inner child doesn't mean that there's literally like a child living inside of you that is childish or egocentric or immature. The inner child is a manifestation of the unconscious, okay? It's an archetype that typically expresses itself when we're faced with some kind of challenge. Inner child has both shadow and light tendencies. So there are both negative and positive aspects to the inner child. So why is the inner child an important concept to work with? Why should we care about our inner child? For most of us, childhood is pretty traumatic. And I don't mean trauma in a sense that we're used to thinking about trauma, right? When we think of trauma, we think of like abuse or neglect or death or things like that. But for a 2-year-old, getting your favorite toy thrown in the trash is pretty traumatic. For a 5-year-old, seeing their parents shouting at each other is pretty traumatic. Okay, and most of us have gotten bullied when we were kids. We've gotten scolded. We've been told to quiet down or sit still or whatever the case may be. And regardless of whether or not being scolded or being punished was warranted, we still, for the experience of a 2-year-old, if we put ourselves inside the body and the experience of a 2-year-old, we experience pain and fear and frustration and anger. And what normally happens is that these negative emotions just get repressed. Okay, and in a sense, we learn that in order to survive in this world, we need to hide a part of ourselves, or we need to hide our emotions. We also internalize various messages that we get from, be it our parents or society, such as boys don't cry or you run like a girl. Okay, we internalize these messages as a lack of permission to be ourselves. So we very early on, we learn that it's not safe to be ourselves in this world, that there's a part of us that we need to hide because it's shameful or not lovable or unworthy of being seen. When we repress these emotions, when we suppress those parts of ourselves that yearn to be realized, it takes a toll on our psychological and emotional and spiritual well-being. Keeps us small and we kind of stay trapped in a sense. So inner child work is really about reclaiming those parts of ourselves that have been denied. It's about liberating ourselves from past traumas and wounds and painful memories that still hold power over us. And it's really going deep into our core issues and releasing these repressed emotions. When I started doing inner child work, I discovered so many needs that were still unmet. I discovered patterns in my behaviors that kept me kind of emotionally stagnant or stuck in one gear. I have an irrational fear of abandonment. Like that's sort of my core wound that has carried over from childhood. So I would unconsciously create situations in my life, particularly within romantic relationships, where I was either being abandoned and then rescued, or I was the one abandoning and rescuing someone else. So this cycle of abandonment and then rescue was this constant push-pull, like this pervasive theme in all of my relationships. And it still is. It still happens on a very unconscious and subtle level. I still catch myself doing that sometimes because this shit runs deep. The difference is that now I'm able to recognize it when it happens, and I'm able to support myself and ask for the support that I need rather than this unconscious pattern having power over me. I feel empowered to take charge of my own healing. This isn't about getting rid of the inner child. It's about working with the inner child and reclaiming our power rather than giving our power away. Through inner child work, I've been able to recover memories, particularly painful memories that I had repressed. And I've had some really powerful flashbacks where it was brought to light, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that had such an impact on me. I had this random memory come up once when I was about 7, and I was at the mall with my mom and my aunt, and there were these shoes that caught my attention, and I wanted them so bad. I can remember exactly what they looked like. They were like these brown baby doll shoes with they had a little platform, and I asked my mom for them, and she wouldn't buy them for me. So for whatever reason, she didn't think I needed it, and we were kind of like in a tough place financially at the time too. So for whatever reason, my mom didn't buy the shoes. No big deal, right? They're just a pair of shoes. I was so upset over not getting these shoes. I mean, I cried for days over these shoes. And for an adult, you can look at that and be like, this kid is just like throwing a tantrum over a pair of shoes. Like, what a brat, right? But the reality was that those shoes meant something for me. Those shoes were like in my mind, were my ticket for fitting in, because during that time I was this immigrant ethnic kid. I got bullied a lot about the food that I ate, or about wearing the same clothes or wearing certain types of jewelry. And I saw those shoes as like, they represented a status for me. Okay, they represented getting in with the cool kids, with the fashionable girls who were always like sporting the latest trend. I wasn't crying over the shoes, I was crying about not fitting in, about being labeled as the other or being misunderstood. But I didn't know how to communicate that when I was 7. This sense of like being misunderstood and feeling different and feeling like the other has stayed with me up until this day. Like, I still feel lonely and misunderstood and alienated at times, but again, the difference between then, when I didn't realize it, and now, is that I'm able to recognize that that's just my inner child wanting to be seen and wanting to be accepted and wanting to belong. And I'm able to meet that need for myself. It doesn't just have to do with wounds. Inner child work is also an incredible gift and an opportunity to connect to our original source of playfulness and creativity, which we kind of lose due to the shoals of adulthood. It's embracing our childlike nature. It's what keeps us positively curious about life. It's this openness and vulnerability with which we explore the world. It's our natural awe and wonder, and it's our fearlessness to dream big and to see ourselves as limitless, and focus on all of the possibilities and potentials. When you're asked as a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? No kid ever says, I want to be a financial consultant or a broker. Not that there's anything wrong with these things, but like kids don't think like that, right? They dream big. They want to be an astronaut or the president. There's like no limit to their dreams, and we lose that. We lose that, and I think it's sad. I think it's sad that many of us lose our ability to see the world through the eyes of wonder and see life as a playground and not a battlefield. So that's what this work is about. It's about returning to our natural state of innocence, our natural awe and wonder that we have about the world. Since childhood, we've been told like what to do and how to speak, how to act, how to dress, what to eat, who to love. Who are you? Who are you beneath all of that conditioning? Our caretakers, our parents, they might have wanted the best for us, but in some way, being told who we are or what to do stumps our creative potential. There's a part of us that never gets fully expressed or realized. And discovering that part of ourselves is like unveiling a treasure chest that has been just sitting in the attic all these years, just collecting dust. And when you discover it and open it up, that energy just flows out and brings out the best in you as well as others. So rather than fulfilling this potential through maladaptive or destructive ways like substance use or compulsive eating or self-sabotage, we transform this energy into positive and creative ways.